Who was Daenys the Dreamer, the woman whose prophecy saved House Targaryen from the doom of Valyria? What else did she prophesy, and will she or her prophecies play a role in the rest of A Song of Ice and Fire? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. On this channel we dive deep into the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, as well as The Lord of the Rings and The Witcher. Welcome. This is another collaboration with the wonderful History of Westeros. Please do check out their amazing podcast and YouTube channel. There's a link in the description. For centuries, if not millennia, the Targaryens lived in the heart of the freehold of Old Valyria, in the capital itself. Along with approximately 40 other Dragon Rider families, they dominated most of the known world. If those 40 families were to be ranked in order of power, it seems that the Targaryens would have been closer to the bottom than the top. Nevertheless, they were dragon lords, families that had existed for eons. Eons spent collecting land, money, influence, and sorcerous knowledge. Those 40 families were effectively demigods compared to anyone else in the world, the most powerful people in the most powerful nation in the world. But 114 years before the conquest, Lord Aenar, the head of House Targaryen, moved the entire family, dragons and all, to Dragonstone. Not only did they move away from the most powerful city in the world, sacrificing all their grand influence, he sold all their lands, holdings that would have been among the most desirable and expensive in the entire world. Lord Aenar Targaryen and his family knew something no one else did. Something none of the other dragon-riding families had warned of, or perhaps they did, but failed to heed it. Aenar's maiden daughter, a young girl set to rule the family alongside her older brother and future husband Gaemon, dreamt that the freehold would be swallowed whole by fire, that the 14 flames, those volcanoes the Valyrians held in check to draw power from, escaped that eldritch entrapment all in one moment. She became known as Daenys the Dreamer, and she seems to be our oldest example of a Targaryen dragon dreamer. A book called Signs and Portents was authored by her. It is a collection of her dreams and visions. The book was written when she was a maiden, thus before the doom itself. This helps explain why Lord Aenar took her prophecy so seriously. Surely a single dream from his young daughter was not compelling enough to move all the way to nearly Westeros to abandon so much power. Instead, it seems a reasonable assumption that Daenys had proven herself through prior prophecies that came to pass. In other words, she must have had credibility for her father to listen and take such drastic measures. Time would certainly prove this one correct as well. Anyone who didn't believe in her predictions before surely would after the doom. We know very little of exactly what her vision was of, other than the destruction of Valyria by fire, or indeed any of her other prophecies, although intriguingly we're told that Archmaester Marwyn the Mage, claims to have discovered 3 pages of the long-thought-lost Signs and Portents. He's currently sailing towards Dany and Tyrion, so perhaps we'll learn more then. We'll come back to that. I did another video on the exact mechanics of how the doom might have happened, if you're interested in that. Might Daenys have seen any of that in her visions? It's possible, though we can't say. The important point is that she clearly saw the fiery destruction and her family believed it would happen, and that they were better off quitting the peninsula completely. Intriguingly, we get another angle on this in House of the Dragon. In one of the history books we see in Dragonstone, we read this. What isn't widely known, however, is that Daenys had claimed Balerion, at the time no bigger than a horse, the night before her faithful dream. This is clearly semi-canon at best, but it's an intriguing possibility. It both implicitly links the Targaryens' ability to dragon dream to their dragons, and also makes us wonder whether Balerion prompted any other Targaryen dreams for later riders. We know that Aegon the Conqueror was a dragon dreamer too, as, it would appear, was Viserys I. They both rode Balerion. So what about Maegor the Cruel, or the tragic Aeria Targaryen? Whether that link to Balerion is true or not, it is undeniable that Targaryens do have dreams. Not all of them, of course, but enough to be considered a family trait. What's curious about this is the other dragon-riding families. Did none of them have dreamers of their own? It's certainly odd that no other family had warning that the doom was coming, or that none of them heeded it. It's easy to assume that since they all had dragons and magic, they must have all had dreamers or the like, but perhaps that assumption is off the mark. Perhaps Daenys was a truly rare individual, or perhaps dreamers were not uncommon, but Daenys was far beyond them in talent. If the dreamer ability is a gene, perhaps one first acquired via Valyrian blood magic, the continuing recurrence of the trait could be evidenced by the fact that all current Targaryens descend from Daenys the Dreamer. She was Aegon, Rhaenys and Visenya's great-great-great-grandmother. Without her as an ancestor, perhaps Targaryens, Blackfyres and others who can trace their lineage to her would have fewer dragon dreams, or perhaps none at all. One linked, intriguing possibility here is that this line of dragon dreamers is not just a random collection of people having random dreams about dragon things, they are all having different parts of the same dream. What if this is all directing the Targaryen family fate down a specific path? First, they need to escape Valyria, then invade Westeros, then rule a united continent while preparing for an attack from the wintry north. Then, when the dragons have gone, get those dragon eggs hatched. And finally, protect and identify the heir who will lead opposition to the others, the prince that was promised. Daenys was given the first part of this family fate, Aegon the second. Several had dreams later of hatching dragon eggs, then a few more near the end, the prince that was promised. Obviously there were other dreams and visions along the way, but that is the central, slowly changing message. It's very possible. Though then you have to ask if one family being marked out like that is just a part of how the world of ice and fire works, or whether perhaps someone or something is manipulating them. House of the Dragon, again not fully canon but worth taking note of, used Season 2 to show a clear blending of two magic types we previously thought separate, dragon dreams and greenseer abilities. Daemon Targaryen, probably the most Targaryen-y Targaryen on the show, sees the future through the weirwood tree at Harrenhal, taking him all the way forward to Dany hatching her dragon eggs, and linking it to the Prince That Was Promised prophecy and Aegon's wider Song of Ice and Fire prophecy. And while he is there, he meets Helaena, who we had thought was just having standard dragon dreams. So, is there a link there? Might the Weirwood Network be behind all this, knowing they need Dragonfire to help defeat the others? Many fans had thought this, even before the TV show went there. Personally, I'm not 100% convinced yet, but I'm ready to be persuaded. Let me know what you think in the comments below. In any event, if this is some kind of Targaryen destiny, guided or not, that puts Daenys at the start of and part of a much greater whole. So we may see her mentioned again in the main story. We earlier noted that Marwyn the Mage claims in his aptly named Book of Lost Books to have found 3 pages of signs and portents, which makes him perhaps the only person alive to know some of what Daenys actually prophesied. What might that be? It's all speculation, but perhaps she foresaw the others, the Dance of the Dragons, the death of the dragons, the Blackfyres, the loss of the Iron Throne, the rebirth of the dragons, Dany herself, any number of things, perhaps even events yet to come in A Song of Ice and Fire. And Marwyn is headed to Daenerys' court in Meereen. Might he show her those 3 pages from her ancestor's book, and might she read something that referred to herself? Perhaps a phrase like Mother of Dragons, which Dany has heard in her own dreams. Or if Dany doesn't herself want to engage in discussions about ancient books, and she doesn't have much of a history of reading, Tyrion definitely will. Might he learn something that converts him into someone who actually believes in Dany's prophetic destiny? He is a natural skeptic, but if anything is going to turn him around, it will be something he reads in a book. George R. R. Martin, as he so often does, has inverted a common fictional trope here. The most famous ancient prophetess of the Western world is probably Cassandra of Trojan War fame. The god Apollo gave her the gift of foretelling, but placed a curse on her that made it so no one would ever believe her prophecies. This made her an extremely tragic figure, a person who knows what's coming, knows how to prevent disaster, but is always dismissed as crazy, and is thus unable to prevent said disasters. In one version of her tale, she exhorts her fellow Trojans to look inside the wooden horse, gifted suspiciously by the Greeks, but apparently the citizens of Troy took that old adage, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, or in the body, too seriously. Daenys is set up as an almost complete opposite of this. Her most famous and important prophecy might have been ignored by most people in Valyria, but it was taken very seriously by the person who mattered most, her Lord Father, the man with final say in protecting his own family. It must be said that most visionaries and prophets in George R.R. Martin's world, and in other stories, suffer from their gift. The ghost of High Heart, for example, is a lonely hermit, traumatised by the damage done by people who listen to her dreams. Diron the Drunkard drinks to stop the dragon dreams, though it doesn't really stop them, and so on. To be fair, we know very little about Daenys' personality, how troubled or untroubled she was by her dreams, but it's hard to imagine she had a completely pleasant life. It must have been difficult knowing all those people would die in Valyria, regardless of whether she told them and they ignored her, or she didn't tell them for some other reason. She must have had friends she left behind in Valyria. We're told that when the Targaryens left, the other Dragonlord families scorned the decision as an act of surrender, as cowardice. And when she reached Dragonstone, it can't have been easy. It's hardly a beauty spot now, but then it would have had even less to offer in terms of ports and towns and people. Daenys moved from the centre of elite society to what was essentially a backwater mercantile outpost. And then there will have been the waiting. The doom happened, as she had foreseen, but not for 12 long years. Might some doubts have crept in? If not from her, then from her family, perhaps. House of the Dragon implied that her mother enjoyed the influence and status she had in Valyria. Would she have enjoyed the move? And then one day, it would have just happened. Distant smoke, perhaps. Big waves. They may even have heard it. Personal vindication will surely have been mixed with horror and grief, particularly when the impact bled into a century of blood, as empires and cultures charged to fill the geopolitical vacuum. And sometime during the years that followed, we know not when, Daenys married her brother Gaemon, who succeeded his father Aenar as Lord of the Targaryens. Gaemon's rule was seemingly a good one. We don't know many details, but the Targaryens will have been legends in that time, the sole remaining dragon riders. We're told that they looked more to the east than the west during that period, though it's noticeable that they didn't seek to re-establish a Valyrian kingdom, or be treated as royalty. They surely could have ruled one or more of the free cities, say, had they wanted to, but they didn't. Perhaps that was because of another of Daenys' dreams. Not looking west is also curious, given Dragonstone's proximity to Westeros. It would be 100 years and Aegon the Conqueror before they did that. Still, Gaemon became known as Gaemon the Glorious, the most powerful lord of Dragonstone during the Century of Blood. It's more than possible that Daenys' dreams might have been a major reason why Gaemon's rule was glorious. We know she didn't only dream about the doom. Did she foresee other events? There are plenty of ways to get ahead in the world when your wife can tell the future. For example, in the main story, Moqorro is able to tell Victarion how to avoid storms, to find the right winds, where to find his lost ships, where to find merchant ships to prey on, and so on. Very useful. Gaemon and Daenys had 3 children that we know of. Aegon and Aelena, through whom the main line of Targaryens carried on, and a younger daughter whose name we don't know. This is actually the earliest known case of an Aegon Targaryen. Given how often Aegon Targaryens are central to prophecy, the first with the conquering in his own dream, and later Rhaegar naming his son Aegon and thinking he would be the prince that was promised, is it just a coincidence that the most famous Targaryen dreamer of them all named her son Aegon? I suspect not. Perhaps she had a dream about an Aegon doing great things. Incidentally, Daenys' unnamed younger daughter married a petty lord, whose descendant 7 generations later put himself forward as a candidate for king in the Great Council of 101, a reminder that there are almost certainly many people in Westeros and beyond in the main story claiming Targaryen ancestry. The Martells and the Plums are just the most famous. Lastly, let's bring ourselves to the present day and take note of the parallels to Daenerys herself. First off, the name similarity is striking. Daenys and Daenerys. If Daenys did indeed ride Balerion, then they are both the first riders of fearsome black dragons. Dany will eventually go west from Essos to Dragonstone, as Daenys did. They also both had important prophetic dreams. In Dany's case, her dreams were one of the key things that prompted her to try to hatch those dragon eggs. There would be a nice symmetry if Daenys had dreamed of that too. If you'd like to see more videos like this, diving into the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, there's a playlist appearing now on the left of your screen. Or to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.